Hi Ada, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Eden. Great to be here.
So I've invited you along to this class to hear a bit more about your journey in public health and health promotion and your current role as the Out and About Program Manager. Would you like to speak by just providing an introduction about yourself?
Sure, I'm Ada. I use she, her pronouns. I'm just hit 32 and I studied a bachelor's degree, an honours degree, and a master's degree. My bachelor's was in arts with honours, and then I studied the Masters of Public Health.
Oh, great. Thanks for that background info. As the students of this subject are yet to kind of enter the main cohort of Swinburne University students, it'd be nice if you felt up for talking about your experience of being a student. So it sounds like you have a vast array of experiences as a student. How was studying for you?
Well, I'm one of the first people in my family to go to uni. And when I said I wanted to study a Bachelor of Arts, my family was a bit like, what even is that? I found uni really great, but also challenging. I have mental illness, so I had depression and anxiety when I was studying my bachelor's, but I got really good support from the uni, the Disability Support Liaison Office at Monash, for example, who gave me really excellent support and resources to be able to complete my bachelor's on time. Things such as looking at my study load, doing exams under conditions that were accessible to me, etc. And overall, I found it really fantastic.
Great, thanks for sharing that. So we've been speaking a lot about the social determinants of health, also the cultural and the environmental determinants of health in this unit. Can you speak to the significance of, for instance, or any of those determinants in your current role? Perhaps, sorry, I've overlooked what your role is. That's quite a broad question for you there.
So I've had quite a lot of roles working within community health. I currently work for an LGBTIQA+ organisation, so an organisation supporting lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and intersex people in Victoria. So this includes the provision of peer support, a helpline, suicide prevention, anti-racist project, family violence project, and projects supporting socially isolated seniors, which is where I work. And I currently work as the program manager, so I do all aspects of, grant applications, program design, rolling out projects, health interventions, alongside health promotion initiatives and larger public health goals, and lastly, running a service. So I organise volunteers to visit socially isolated older people once a fortnight. That's the introduction spiel, but as to how social determinants come into place in my work, it's absolutely relevant. And I think in all of my jobs working in community health over the years, including in reception and intake at a community health centre with doctors, that especially looked after people who were refugees, asylum seekers, people who spoke languages other than English, people living in government housing, people who used intravenous drugs. I currently work with people who have experienced a lot of trauma in their life and a lot of barriers to accessing support. So again, we know with the social determinants of health that half the determinants of health, or maybe less, there's no quick answer there. So there's the individual and then society that wraps around them. So for example, for an 80-year-old gay man in Australia, that person would have lived through a time where being gay was illegal and in fact was punishable by the death penalty until 1949, when they could have been sent to jail in their lifetime, when being gay was illegal until 1997 in Tasmania, which is the last state to decriminalise. I'm bringing this up because I'm talking about what society shapes you as, for example, as a gay man in this instance, and how that affects your health outcomes. So, for example, an 80-year-old gay man in his lifetime would have experienced lots of stigma, the potential of being outed as gay and losing his job, potentially earning less money than straight people due to discrimination, homophobia, etc., potentially being forced to marry a woman, so that seemed as socially acceptable, maybe living with mental illness due to social pressures, homophobia, etc. So again, all of these things are outside that person and they're socially determined. So the result of that discrimination and stigma means that someone like this 80-year-old gay man, who could be a client at my current work, would face additional barriers to accessing appropriate healthcare, such as, for example, if you were forced in your 30s to go to the hospital to get forced conversion therapy to make you straight, which continues to happen in some cases, that would give you a fear of going to the hospital, potentially a fear of the police, potentially the fear of healthcare providers, etc. So a lot of people from stigmatized, minoritized backgrounds, such as LGBTI people, face that additional fear of accessing healthcare. And often those health services aren't aware of the existence or the needs of people from minoritized backgrounds, such as LGBTI people, intravenous drug users, people who speak languages other than English, all of these people who I'm sure you've been discussing in depth. So at the end of the day, what it might look like for someone such as this gentleman that we just discussed to use my services, that I have to work with individuals to pass through so many barriers so that they feel comfortable using my service and they feel like they can trust connecting with me, and I can then give them referrals to other health services to increase their health outcomes.
Thanks so much for saying. A key social determinant that we've been speaking at length about in this subject, and something that's close to my heart as well, is the concept of social inclusion and social exclusion, and particularly as a subset of that, the concept of social support. This is a bit of a leading question, but do you see social support as an important determinant of health with the cohort with which you work?
Yes, but in general, social inclusion is super important. There's a number of studies that say that social isolation can be as bad for your health as smoking a packet of cigarettes a day. And that talks about, having the emotional and mental connections, but also having someone to encourage you and support you to see a doctor when you need it. Social inclusion means that, everyone who turns up at a health service feels like they're welcome there and they receives equal and fair treatment.
So as I understand it, part of your role is to kind of match up socially isolated older queer folks or LGBTQIA adults with someone within the community. So what is the kind of overarching goal of that connection?
The goal is to increase friendships and social support. So the goal is for these socially isolated people to achieve the same outcomes as everybody else, which is social connection. And by working with a group that's historically marginalised and excluded, I'm able to, again, use culturally safe, LGBTI culturally safe techniques and methods, such as working with peers, making sure we're not homophobic or transphobic, to try and get these people that I work with to the same outcome. So social inclusion, feeling valued and respected by society at the same level of other seniors who are not LGBTI.